Hey, assholes!
Who you calling assholes, dick-ass?
I've come to avenge the death of my master. Actually, it's her right there. You literally just killed her.
Oh, her. She was weak, like dried leaves underfoot.
Well, I'll have to punch your dicks off.
Oh, it's a dick punch you want. Oh, minions, make him fear our girth. Oh, your weak-ass master taught you well.
Your little minions are no match for my wonton fist, and neither are you. Blade and Soul. I talked a lot about it a few months ago when I gave my first impressions during the beta, and now it's out in all its glory, and I get to dig deep into this martial arts-inspired MMORPG about punching dudes. And goddamn, do I love punching people. Wait, that came out a bit wrong. Come back from that. Blade and Soul is a game by Studio Bloodlust and published by everyone's favorite publisher, NCSoft. And as you've probably seen and, heard me mention it above, it's an MMO about martial arts. And if you can find a single kung fu movie trope that this game doesn't hit on, then I will be shocked. You got the dead masters and dragons, and you got the wonderful crest peaks. From its theming to its narrative, this is, in essence, a kung fu movie in an MMORPG form. And let me tell you, as a huge fan of B kung fu movies, that's not a bad thing at all. But let's dive in, shall we? Let's check out what makes Blade and Soul tick, or I guess in this case, kick. It all starts out in character creation, where you're given a choice of 7 classes spread across 4 races. Now, most of these are basically what you'd expect. Kung Fu Masters punch and kick things. Destroyers use giant axes. Blade Masters and Blade Dancers use... I'm gonna let you guess that one. You have Force Masters, who are basically your wizards, and Summoners use cats. Cats. Cats? There are 4 races to choose from, which basically boil down to human, taller, more muscular human, model-esque, female-only human, and tiny animal human, all of which have a pretty solid amount of customization to them, about what you'd expect from any modern MMORPG. And then you're thrust into the world, where you, as a student at a martial arts academy, witness your master being murdered, as well as your fellow students, and must travel the world and seek revenge against a leather-clad group of goth kids responsible for it all. And I'm willing to bet that she's a Blade Master because she is just dripping with edge. So right off the bat, you're probably feeling the kung fu martial arts cliches starting to pile on, but don't worry, they don't stop there. This takes you through a massive variety of Asian-themed zones, from karst peaks to rolling deserts to bamboo forests. And the zones are gorgeous, by and large. They're generally pretty structured in terms of how you move through them, but they are really beautifully designed. The art direction that goes into these areas is gorgeous. There's a solid amount of detail and passion put into every one of these zones to make them look really nice. Theming is really consistent, and the backdrops are sweeping, even in, small arenas. It's the kind of game you can just sit back and admire the scenery. On the other hand, how you progress through these zones is not so awesome. The questing in Blade and Soul is largely of the variety of the lifeless, sort of well-trodden quest systems we're probably used to from every MMO under the sun at this point. I can give you a breakdown of how almost every major questing hub will work before I've even reached it. The main story quest will take you into a hub. You complete a small number of objectives in the open world before advancing into a small single-player dungeon with a few objectives in it. Beat a boss-type enemy before moving on to the next questing hub. Rinse and repeat ad nauseum. And the quests are all basically exactly the same as what you've seen before. A vast train of bare-ass collection duty, with a few story quests sprinkled in for some nice flavor. Very nice, but way too far between. Which is kind of sad, because the story is actually interesting when it wants to be. The characters you can actually get invested in. Elements that are actually kind of interesting, and it can't be we watched about 1 million martial arts movies before writing this kind of way. It really is a shame that you have to collect so many bare asses before you can have fun with them. The quests, not the bare asses. That would be weird. This wouldn't be as bad if the questing were not, by far, the most efficient way to level up. Dungeoning and PvP don't even come close, which is sad because both of them are substantially more fun. And if you really want to enjoy PvP and dungeons, you better reach level 45 or like 50 maybe at the time of this video. This is largely due to skill points, which are a pretty cool system. After level 15, you start getting skill points every level, and you can start investing them in skills that you've unlocked once you complete a certain quest within the game's narrative. You can toss these points into your various punches and kicks to cause a variety of effects. This ranges from small tweaks such as cost reductions or additional damage or making an attack area of effect to entire overhauls that completely change a skill, such as a Blade Master's block becoming a rapid parry that deals damage to enemies and stuns them if performed correctly. This is pretty cool and there's a lot of customization here. And of course you will find a bunch of cookie cutter builds at higher levels, but it's still fun to experiment around while you're just playing and having a good time. Dungeons are a lot more fun than the regular questing stuff, but sadly level you up a little bit slower. It's a notable change for most MMOs, which break from the Holy Trinity as well, which adds a lot of spice to these dungeons that you don't really find many other places. There are some classes that are certainly better at, say, tanking a boss than others, but there's no real healer class, and it becomes more about surviving a fight with the enemies by dodging or blocking or avoiding attacks, rather than following a rigid meta and spamming heals on somebody. This is reinforced by the Dragon Blood system, which allows you to carry Dragon Blood, a resource that heals you to full hit points and removes any crowd control effects if you're reduced to 0 hit points. Think of it like extra lives. And this would be even more interesting if it weren't for the kind of shoddy itemization system sort of holding it back, which I don't really like. So most of your items that give you statistics can be leveled up, except for your Soul Pizza, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Instead of swapping items out constantly like you do in a lot of MMOs and getting cool upgrades, you're instead constantly upgrading a single item you get near the beginning of the game. You basically feed your swords to your sword to make it more swordy. It's probably my least favorite aspect of the game. It's not very good and really invites some nasty grind. You can use various resources and other weapons to level up your weapons, and then evolve it to a new weapon eventually with another certain weapon that you would usually pick out of a dungeon or challenging encounter. This is interesting, but it kind of feels lame. You always kind of have the same sword. It changes stats and appearance over time. It generally takes a pretty long time for that to happen too, but it never really becomes anything different than the sword that you have to grind and locate upgrade components for. This can result in running the same dungeons over and over again to get an upgrade component for a sword, which I guess you could argue is kind of similar to how other MMOs do it when you're just running the same dungeon again to get an upgraded item. But when you're feeding that item to your sword instead of like pulling out a brand new awesome sword, it kind of feels lame and cheap. You just make your sword a little bit better because of the item off the boss. You don't get a really cool new sword. I don't like this system, like at all. It takes away a lot of the rush of getting a new thing when you're just gonna feed it to your other sword that make that other sword stronger. It's similar for rings and neck items, basically anything that gives you stats except for your delicious Soul Pizza. The Soul Pizza, on the other hand, is a rather interesting concept. It basically replaces all of your gear slots, as opposed to putting on like a shoulder plate or a chest piece. You get a slice of Soul Pizza. There are 8 sections in total, and each Soul Pizza comes in a set, which gives you set bonuses if you have an entire Soul Pizza, which is kind of interesting. It keeps that gear thing. There's no visual representation of your Soul Pizza on your character, though. There's just one in your character's screen, which kind of isn't that cool. I mean, isn't the joys of getting a new item seeing how your character changes in appearance when they put it on? I don't know, maybe that's just me. That's a nitpick, I guess, at most. The outfit system, on the other hand, is a bit more unique. Your character's outward appearance is actually determined by your outfit, which has no stats. But beyond being purely cosmetic, they have some more ethereal effects. For example, there are faction pajamas you can put on. I call them faction pajamas because it's funny. You get your Cerulean Order or Crimson Legion faction pajamas pretty early in the game, and equipping those faction pajamas will make the opposite faction hostile to you. There are various sets of faction pajamas for various PvP factions throughout the world, such as the Black Ram and the Bamboo Guard. They're all over the place, but there's also just good-looking outfits. They have this sense of uniformity to them that you don't really see in too many games these days. But unfortunately, it does rule out a lot of customization. I mean, Transmog is a huge scene in World of Warcraft because people like to customize their characters and make their own sets. You won't be able to find that here. Even the adornments are usually bound to a specific outfit. If I haven't sold you on Blade and Soul yet, I'm not at all surprised. A lot of this is pretty par for the course. There's some system breaks like itemization and outfit, but other than that, this sounds like a pretty standard MMORPG. That's because I've kind of neglected the most important part so far, and that's what I want to get into. The combat. If you saw my earlier video impressions, you know I thought the combat was pretty goddamn cool. I was entirely wrong. It is unbelievably cool. The combat in Blade and Soul is fast, elegant, and adaptive, combining combos, avoidance mechanics such as blocks or dodges, in a system that feels more at home in a fighting game than an MMO. I can't get over how much fun fighting things in this game is. It's artistic. The attacks are highlighted with beautiful flourishes. Launchers and follow-up air attacks are cinematic. It makes combat feel really intense, fast, and engaging. Finding fun new combos to take down enemies, working out timings for attacks, it feels great. That and just wailing on enemies is hilarious fun. And that's what makes this game really have some powerful staying power. It's great and fun to play when you're fighting monsters. Despite the boring questing, you might enjoy it a little bit more because it's genuinely fun to beat up on enemies. But it gets even better. But first, story time. I hate PvP in most MMORPGs. From battlegrounds to arenas, I can't do it. I was once in a 2s and 3s team in World of Warcraft, and I did the 2-hour AV thing, and I played a lot of PvP, and I've never really gotten the hang of it or enjoyed it. But PvP arena fighting in Blade and Soul. Oh my god! Oh my god, this is amazing! I have never had so much fun beating another player to a pulp. In a video game, I was never convicted. The PvP brings out the best parts of the combat into a ridiculously fast-paced throwdown. This is probably the only MMO in which I really enjoy the PvP and can see myself coming back to it, to throw down more often. And the game is built around this fact, with ladders and rankings as well as tournaments hosted by the devs and different things. Blade and Soul is a game about PvP, undoubtedly. While everything around it ranges from fun to competent, the combat against other players is just straight up incredible. More fun than I have ever had. It's the only reason I was able to continue enjoying the game after I hit about my mid-20s. In that, I'd probably liken Blade and Soul to like a martial arts movie, a B Kung Fu movie. Not just in narrative, style, and theming, but in general. Because going into an old school Kung Fu movie, the story might not grab you. The characters might be dull and one-dimensional, but the movie makes up for it in spades with incredible action and fight scenes with great choreography. A lot of the times you don't go to a Kung Fu movie to watch a bunch of people talk. You go to a Kung Fu movie, watch some awesome martial arts. With a good example, this would be like The Raid Redemption, a fantastic movie with fight scenes that will blow your mind. The story is campy and uninspired, but that's not what we came for. We came to watch some people kick some ass. And in the end, this is what Blade and Soul does best above all else. No matter how kind of conventional or boring the questing might be, or how uninspired the narrative might be, or how the item system might suck dick, in the end, Blade and Soul is a really good fighting game. Nobody plays Mortal Kombat for the lore. Okay, there's people who play Mortal Kombat for the lore, but I'm not talking about you. People don't generally play Mortal Kombat for the lore. People play Mortal Kombat because it's a really good fighting game. That's what Blade and Soul is. A really good fighting MMO. A great arena PvP game that is an incredible amount of fun. And that's what I would recommend it. If you love those B martial arts movies, if you love fighting games, if you love arena PvP, Blade and Soul is probably an A+ for you. You should check it out. But thanks. You all have a great one. I better go kick some ass and take some names. I'll have to use my special technique, Dick Lunch.
That was pretty good. But let me tell you, I've jerked off harder than that. Minion, Jabba me. Oh, yeah! My attacks are useless. What is this power? Wait, it
must be the coffee. He's getting power from his coffee. Coffee punch!
You should be honored. You have ever seen me resort to my final form.
So this is your true form. Clearly I am no match for you fighting back, Brett. But I shall return when I have grown stronger and defeat you once and for all. Why, hello there, everybody. Thank you very much for watching this episode of the Orange Hatter Show covering Blade and Soul. Finally, sorry, it took me a little bit of a while. This is probably my most ambitious video ever, so sorry it's been a little bit in the works. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. It's a huge support to the channel and helps me be able to do crazy stuff like this more often. One other thing I'm going to plug is the Discord server for the Orange Hatter channel. We play video games together a lot. It's a great time. We have a Discord server set up, and anybody is welcome to join it and hang out and have a good time in that server. If you are interested in joining the Discord server and playing video games with myself and a bunch of other great people, add me on Steam, The Orange Hatter, and request an invite, and I'll get you right in there. But thank you again very much for watching. This is probably my biggest video to date, and I'm really excited that it got done. I hope you've enjoyed it, and you all have a great one.
Ha